Good day everyone, my name is Ana Marie Regañon and our topic for today is all about Lesson 14, Strategy 6, Using Case Study as a Teaching Strategy. Without any further ado, let's get started. What is a case study? A case study is like an in-depth and extended example that is used to illustrate a particular argument. However, in more academic case, we can define a case study as a method of developing a complete understanding of a process, program, event, or activity. On the other hand, Gillen 2009, the use of case study, also called the case method of teaching or case-based pedagogy, and it has three major components. First is the case itself. Second is the student's preparation for engaging with and discussing the case. Third one is the classroom discussion. So this process of case study requires that the students be given access to the case in advance so that they can individually or in groups prepare for a detailed whole class discussion. Well, on the other hand, a case is a story with a hidden message, a narrative that describes an actual or realistic situation in which an individual or a group has to make a decision or solve a problem. It can be useful to categorize cases in terms of their completeness and openness and in terms of the action required from the student. So first is complete. It is a case that describes fully the situation and its real-life conclusion. The second one is incomplete. It refers to a case that explains real events up to a point but does not include the real outcome of these events. So the third one is open. It is a case that may have many possible solutions or actions that could be recommended. So if you want the students to explore many possibilities and debate their merits, you will structure the case study as an open-ended one. So the last one is closed. A case that has a single but response or solution. So if you want to test the students' understanding of well-defined facts and principles, you can probably use a closed case study. So did you get me? Thank you. So please take note that the most significant benefit of case studies is that they enable a holistic review. Unlike standalone research techniques, which give more of a snapshot, example the survey, so a case study offers the opportunity for a researcher to use range of tools on one subject. According to Clarkson 1999, rather, they take advantage of the idea that real-life significant problems have no correct answer, just ranges of possible answers. They also help the students to see that they can simultaneously develop their understanding of theory and their problem-solving skills while struggling with realistic problem. So therefore, using a case study as a teaching strategy will help every student to enhance and develop their thinking skills. Any clarifications? If none, okay, let's proceed to our next topic about when and why should case study use as a teaching strategy. So let's find out. According to Hagel and Julian, 1996, the case method of teaching can provide a very natural way of helping the students to learn by exploiting the basic human capacity to learn from stories. So another cases offer the students opportunities to grapple with issues, problems, dilemmas, and puzzles in ways that are engaging, challenging, and productive in a reasonable, safe, but not entirely risk-free environment. Then, cases encourage the students to reach a deeper understanding of the concepts and issues than they would from just reading or listening to a lecture. They help the students to appreciate rather the limited extent to which their current theoretical understanding enable them to resolve ill-defined problems and provide credible explanations of real situations. Then another is cases studies encourage the learners to take responsibilities for their own learning and to see the benefits of thinking about theoretical issues before they are discussed in class. Is that clear? Okay, let's proceed. With effective planning and preparation, using case study as a teaching strategy is a valuable method for developing students' ability to think critically and analytically to identify areas requiring attention or resolution, both in the classroom and in real-world scenarios. So, why case study method is useful for teaching? A major advantage of teaching with case studies is that the students are actively engaged in figuring out the principles by abstracting from the examples. So this develops their skills in problem solving, analytical tools, quantitative and or qualitative depending on the case. Yes, indeed. Well, on the other hand, using case study may not be suitable for all situations. It also has some limitations. Here are the following presents a summary of both the advantages and limitations of using case study as a strategy in class. Killen 2009. Use case study if the outcomes you want the students to achieve are readily related to issues beyond the classroom. Next is the learners have sufficient prior knowledge to guide their analysis of complex materials. The third one is the students are self-motivated and can learn with minimal assistance. So the fourth one is you want to build the students' confidence by showing the value of their individual solutions to problems. So the fifth one is you want to encourage the students to be independent learners. And the last one is you want to foster critical thinking. So take note of that, future teachers. Okay, let's proceed to do not use case study if the students lack the basic skills to work independently or in small groups. The next one is the students have very poor literacy skills. So the third one is you cannot allow the students sufficient time to analyze the case materials. And then the last one is the students lack background knowledge necessary for interpreting and resolving the case. And that's all my report. Thank you. And now, let's proceed to our next reporter, Miss Princess Navarro.
Good morning, everyone. I am Princess Navarro. So today I'll be discussing about how to use a case study as a teaching strategy. So one of the first decisions of a teacher has to make is whether he or she will use a case study to support what the students are learning in other ways, or whether it will be the prime vehicle for learning. In the first instance, you will use the case to illustrate typical issues or dilemmas, so the cases you use will need to be relatively short and straightforward. But if you want the case study to be the main vehicle or the prime vehicle for the students' learning, then you have to involve them in the analysis of more substantial case studies. So there are 4 steps in preparing to use a case study. These are deciding to use a case study, developing or selecting the case, guiding the students in their preparation for discussion, and lastly, preparing yourself for the classroom discussions. So first, let's discuss the first main steps, which is deciding to use a case study. As with all other teaching strategies, the effective use of case studies requires you to have a particular purpose in mind. So when you select this strategy, your choice of strategy should not be made before you are absolutely clear about what you want the students to learn and why you want them to learn it. So your purpose might be is to expose your students to complex real-world situations and to help them make connections between separate disciplines and to develop their ability to work in teams when solving problems. As a teacher, we need to teach our students how to be great problem solvers so that they will be ready for anything. So always remember that your purpose must be clear to you and to your students. So there are two main reasons for using case studies: to motivate the students to learn theory and to illustrate the application of theory. So if you are using to motivate the students to learn a theory, the 5 basic steps are: present the case to students before they have received instructions on the relevant theory. Second step is provide guidelines to help the students prepare for the class discussion by exploring the case. And the next step is give the students time to study and prepare for the class discussion. Fourth step is guide the class discussion so that the students formulate a list of questions that need to be answered before the problem in the case study can be resolved. And lastly, conclude the discussion with an overview of how the questions will be answered in subsequent lessons. If you are using a case study to illustrate the application of theory in real-world context, the basic steps are: present the case to students after they have received instruction on the relevant theory. The next step is provide guidelines to help the students analyze the case, probe the underlying issues, select relevant theories to apply, and suggest ways in which the issues could be resolved. The third step is give the students time to study the case and prepare for the class discussion. The fourth step is guide the class discussion so that the students generate possible alternative solutions, consider their relative merits, and reach some level of consensus. And lastly, conclude the discussion with an overview of the broader issues raised by the case.
As you can hear, maraming dumadaan ng mga tricycle, motors, and so on, and I'm sorry about that. But by the way, hello everyone, it's NOUFA May, and I'm going to continue our report. It's developing or selecting the case. In some field of study, there are large numbers of formal case study available off the shelf. The other major sources of materials that can be used to case are journals, newspapers, magazines, novels, and DVDs. In some instances, it is best to write your own case from scratch. This may be a time-consuming exercise, but it allows you to incorporate some of your experiences into the case study. Whether you see cases developed by someone else or develop your own, you have to ensure that the case meets your needs better than an alternative teaching strategy. Otherwise, it will be a poor use of time. According to Kellen 2009, whether you are selecting or developing a case, it is important to consider the following criteria. First, outcome focus. The case must make a positive contribution to the student's achievement of the course outcomes. It must lead them into the required depth of analysis and into the type of thinking that are reflected in the outcomes. The case must be an integral part of the course, not just an interesting discussion. Yes. Second, interest. The case must be seen as relevant and interesting by the learners. This usually means that the case tells a story that the readers can relate to their own experiences or to a situation that they believe they might face. It also helps if the case contains some controversy or conflict an issue that the students might reasonably be expected to disagree. Interest is also influenced by the style in which the case is written. This is according to Herod 2002. Number 3, recency. The current problems will probably be more engaging for the students than historical cares well. This is according to Herod 1997, suggests that the best cases address issues that are not more than 5 years old. Next, number 4, rigor. I don't know how to pronounce this, but I think rigor. Okay? The CAS must lead the students to a detailed situational analysis and a deep understanding of the context of the case, to an appreciation of the open-endedness of the case issues and to their interrelatedness, and to an examination of the issue from multiple perspectives. So the case should address issues that required collaborative discussions. Okay, number 5, the decision focus. So the case should lead the students first individually and then a group to make a decisions about some important issue. Next, number 6, the generality. Each case will be unique, but each case should be lead the students to some conclusions that are generalizable to other broader contexts. Number 7, realism. Real problems rarely come clearly defined and neatly packaged like typical textbooks exercises. They are more likely to be complex and ill-defined. Cases needs to reflect this. The case should make it possible for the students to be drawn into the drama of difficult real-world situations and decision, and for the teacher to be able to pose questions that will maximize the students' understanding of these issues. Number 8, the length. The case should be long enough to raise important issues, supplies essential information, and engage the learners. The cases that are too long or that contains too much fine details may distract the students from the key issues. So next number 9, the last number, readability. The information in the case must be accessible to the learners. It should be written in the appropriate language and the style. Okay, let's proceed to the next topic, which is the teacher's preparation for the classroom discussion. So according to Volpe on 2002, in general, the more you do, the more the students will do. By showing your commitment to the students, by being well prepared, and by showing concern for the students, you will be able to extract a similar level of commitment from the students. The students will generally prepared up to, but not beyond, the standard of preparation of the instructor. Guys, always remember, the first step in your preparation must be to review the outcomes you want the learners to achieve. The next step in your preparation must be detailed analysis of the case. You must thoroughly understand all the issues and the web of relationship between them. You must take time to clarify your understanding of the theoretical basis for all the possible interpretation of these issues and to be able to justify the conclusions you would reach. Although you will not want to expose your point of view on the students, you must be prepared to share your view with them. Hope you get it. Okay? An important part of your preparation will be the develop of a set of questions to focus the class discussion. If the case contains substantial issues and a degree of controversy of dilemma, you will probably need only 4 or 5 key questions. Okay? This question should help the students define important aspects of the problem, generate alternatives, reach considered position, and reach of the broader issues raised by the case. And yes, try to anticipate how the students might react to the case and to the question that you will use to guide to discussion. And that's all my report. Next reporter, please. Thank you.
Good morning. My topic is all about guiding the classroom discussion. So when we say guiding the classroom discussion, it is the general principles for effective case discussion are the same as those for any whole class discussion, and you have to indicate the discussion, keep the students focused on the main issue. In order for discussion to be effective, students need to understand the value of actively listening to their peers. They also need to recognize the importance of staying focused and expressing themselves actively. Discussion is not just sharing of ideas, nor it is the process of students presenting ideas of your approval. Questioning. It is very important skills of the teachers during discussion. Your question might serve any of the following purposes. Your question might serve as any of the following purposes. First is clarification. Can you explain what you mean by that? Elaboration. Can you expand on that ideas? Generalization. In what other situation might that principles apply? Structuring. What facts need to be considered before we focus on the emotional issue? How is that different from? Engagement. What would you do in that situation? Substantiation. How can you justify assumption? Linking. How do these two ideas relate to one another? Integration. What general principles might help us understand this situation? Focus. How does that take us closer to solutions? Consensus. Why might some peoples agree with that ideas? Summarizing and closure. Well-prepared cases will be so realistic that they cannot be resolved completely in a single class discussion. However, you still need to bring the discussions to satisfying conclusion. You might provide a summary or you might ask the students to do it either way. The summary should address both the issue in the case study and the process that we were used to analyze it. And closure refers to an activity that ends a lesson and creates a lasting impression, a phenomenon called the recency effect. Closures offers multiple benefits, but please don't view it as a professional must do in every lesson. A teacher uses closure to check for understanding and information subsequent instruction, emphasize key information, tie up loose ends, and correct misunderstandings. Students find closure helpful for summarizing, relieving, and demonstrating their understanding of major points, consolidating and internalizing key information, linking lesson ideas to conceptual framework and or previously learned knowledge.